Hey rule breakers, we are back at it again with a new episode, and this time let's delve into some more interesting insights of guerrilla marketing campaigns. Hi Vedant, could you elucidate our listeners a conspicuous instance in which a guerrilla marketing endeavor did not yield anticipated results or, in fact, led to unanticipated repercussions? Hmm. Can you tell our listeners an example where a guerrilla marketing campaign went wrong?
Yeah, I have many, but I remember this one which really went bad.
What happened?
So, this was in 2007 when Cartoon Network, our favorite childhood channel, had decided to promote their show Aqua Teen Hunger Force. For this, they had set up little glowing LED devices which resembled the characters across the city of Boston. The characters on these devices showcased a middle finger, and people mistook them for suspicious packages, and panic quickly spread. The city went on high alert, and bomb squads were called in to investigate these seemingly strange electronic devices. This backfired for Cartoon Network really bad. The campaign, which was intended to create intrigue, ended up causing fear, confusion, and a significant backlash from the public. This is why Sarthak, a lot of effort should be put in to consider things that can go wrong before designing a guerrilla marketing campaign.
Oh, I see.
So, friends, the moment you've all been waiting for is here. We have a special guest today on our podcast, Miss Toru Jhaveri. Toru ma'am is the founder of the brand strategy studio, The Stuff of Life. She has been associated with the advertising industry for almost 14 years now. She started her career with Nielsen and worked with the DDP Mudra Group for 11 years, finishing her stint as the vice president and head of strategy at the company. Ma'am, we wholeheartedly welcome you to our podcast, and without further ado, let's start with the discussion. So, ma'am, when do you think guerrilla marketing is most effective, and when does it fall short, considering both small and big firms?
So I can't say that I've done like some tons and tons of guerrilla marketing, because working with established brands, like I said, for me, guerrilla marketing is about using resources inventively. If you have significant resources at your disposal, you're basically doing an event or an activation. Okay. I think where it works generally, whether you're small or whether you're large, and I mentioned this earlier, is that element of delight. Right? Something nice that you see, something unexpected. Or at least something thought-provoking. So, for instance, when I talk about suicide awareness, there was this project in the UK a couple of years ago called Project 84. 84 men commit suicide in the UK every week. So they put up 84 statues, almost on the ledge of buildings, as if it's a man about to jump off. So that kind of stuff, okay, it's obviously not fun or pleasant, but it's thought-provoking, right? It's interesting. I think that's when it works. When you're going about your day-to-day life and you see something unexpected. I think where it fails is if it feels like a gimmick, like it feels like you're being trapped somewhere because there's some candid camera situation and you're expected to react in a particular way. Like a lot of brands set up things, like projecting millions of things on the gateway of India is not guerrilla marketing. Technically, yes. Technically, but what value does that add to the customer? What about it is memorable or interesting? So I think this is really when something is effective, is when it's embedded in day-to-day life, and less effective when it's clearly a gimmick and you're expected to react in a particular way.
Ma'am, what do you envision as the future of guerrilla marketing? And when we say this, we want to know how emerging technologies like AI would impact it.
So the future, like I said, increasingly the lines between guerrilla marketing and marketing are getting blurred, right? It's all about an opportunity to create content, to get people talking. All brands want this. It's just that some brands have to think a little bit more creatively about it because they don't have the clout of like a Coca-Cola or a IKEA or whatever, right? So in that sense, I think the future, I don't know if in 10 years we'll still be talking, or even 5 years, we'll be talking about guerrilla marketing as a separate thing. It's maybe a mindset. I don't know if it'll be a separate type of marketing.
Yeah.
Speaking of like emerging technologies, again, it can be interesting. So because you all mentioned AI, I was thinking about, and I don't know if you all are aware of this, this is something BDB Madrid had done in 2015, 2016, when the Spanish government had banned protests and large gatherings in front of parliament. They'd actually asked people to voluntarily submit facial scans, and they'd created the world's first hologram protest. Okay, so hundreds of people using, it wasn't necessarily called AI then, but using like very new technologies, taking your face and your body kind of shape, turning you into a virtual protester who marched to the Spanish parliament and protested. And it was like a massive talking point globally for a few days, was brought up in Spanish parliament. So if you're using technology in like interesting ways to build on an idea, I think there's a lot of potential to do these kinds of things, right? I think there's also the temptation to be really intrusive and to do things without adequate permission or digital safeguarding. So I think how people react to it in the future, there's all this creative potential to use AI, like I said, to surprise and delight. But to what extent are you being, I think, courteous about whether people are voluntarily participating in something? That's going to make all the difference. Like just because you have AI in a simulated environment doesn't mean you can intrude on people. And I feel a lot of brands are going to do that initially.
Also, ma'am, if we were to create our own guerrilla marketing campaign, what suggestions would you give as how to build and design one? And what considerations should we keep in mind?
So a lot of it I'll very quickly recap what I've said already, which is with any marketing, and marketers keep forgetting this, advertisers keep forgetting this, put the person at the heart of the campaign. What are their routines? What are their rituals? Where can you embed yourself and add value, add delight, add information without intruding, right? And without having them take a detour from their day-to-day lives. You identify those opportunities, and then I think you have to think very clearly about how does this tie into your brand proposition in a way that's meaningful. So that grocery brand you spoke about, I don't know who you're referring to, but I'm assuming ultimately all of it tied into something that had value for a customer. So I think it's very simple, like the basic principles. I think you have to be a little bit more creative with your ideation. But the basic principles of what's customer friendly or consumer friendly stay the same. But like, I think people will really have to push hard because there are more and more legal restrictions on how to use public space. More and more restrictions around sponsorships, right? Like you could get away with things 20 years ago that people will take you to court for now. So in that sense, when you're doing guerrilla marketing, you have to be much more aware of all of these details. Like there's very little margin for error now. I don't think that was true 10, 15 years ago.
Absolutely. Like there have been a lot of guerrilla marketing attempts which failed because of like they didn't take care of public cognizance or any permissions, and just backfired on them. So and these rules have been becoming more aware, and people are becoming more so it's getting tougher for coming up with new ideas. But I got your point.
So it's harder. Just like it's getting a bit trickier to build a brand, I think it's getting trickier to do marketing as well. Still possible, but you have to think of a lot more factors.
Great. A big thank you, ma'am, from our side for joining us today and enlightening us with some interesting insights on guerrilla marketing.
Happy to have helped.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much once again for joining us.
No, my pleasure.
So, rule breakers, this was it from our side. Hope you enjoyed our podcast series on guerrilla marketing and were able to gain something out of it. Please like and share our podcast and also drop a comment about your thoughts. Thank you again for staying with us. We wish you a good day and happy learning. Until next time, bye bye.